All right, time to start the awesomeness. We are very fortunate to kick things off. Well, actually, coming back for a revenge visit, no pun intended, is our good friend, Academy Award-nominated production designer Joe Alves, who's done everything from, Jaws, obviously. Jaws, Close Encounters, Sugarland Express, Escape from New York for director John Carpenter. Now showing up, I don't feel tardy. You want to grab yourself a seat and bring it in. Writer, director Carl Gottlieb, the writer of Jaws, Jaws 2, Caveman, etc., etc., etc. Obviously working his own hours around the station lately. But we're happy that you're here nonetheless. Actually, Dave with Chronicle Books is with us. We're going to have him here. And then the man who, the most interesting man in the world this week. Anyway.
Stay thirsty, my friend.
Gunnar Hansen, the how do you like to be introduced these days, knowing that you were obviously part of the rather epic scene that was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you're a writer.
Yes.
So how do you prefer? How does the title go?
Gunnar Hansen, immigrant who made good.
Immigrant who made good. Viking immigrant?
Yes.
Yes, Iceland originally, right?
Right.
People don't realize that you are quite an epic writer, and there's a book coming out in about 4 days, Chronicle Books.
Chainsaw Confidential.
And I understand they're already, looting bookstores for it now to try to get your book early. But why don't you tell us a little bit real quick, kick things off before this conversation spirals into complete movie chaos. Why don't you kick things off with what can people expect if they rush out and pick up the Chainsaw Confidential?
It's about the making of Chainsaw. I interviewed all the surviving cast members and every crew member I could find, and so I got their story. But it's a day-to-day account of the experience of filming Chainsaw, and then from there it talks about how the world reacted to the movie when it came out, how the critics responded, how the public responded, and why it is that people hated, not people, but critics hated Chainsaw Massacre. The London Times said the less said about Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the better. And then from there it talks about how the perception of the movie has evolved and what its place in horror is.
How does that strike you? You're in demand, I would imagine. I mean, everyone at a convention wants to shake your hand. Can you endorse a signature series? Can you endorse a signature series of meat cleavers and butchery tools? And at the time, it's like it's almost like finally I'm a validation.
Yeah, I'd like to do a McCulloch ad.
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't. It's the world is so cryptic in a way now. I'm surprised that you have, at least on Saturday Night Live. I don't know why.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely. Well, part of it, I think that after Chainsaw Massacre, I moved to New England and hunkered down and wrote for almost 20 years before I looked up and looked around and realized Chainsaw was big.
Yeah.
And I just had nothing to do with the movie business. So I think that's part of the reason.
Why was that? Was it just because the overall experience was kind of like, screw this, man?
Well, I liked working on Chainsaw, but I did another picture right after that I never got paid for.
Chainsaw 2?
No. I wish. And then
Still in litigation?
I met a couple of movie producers, and no criticism of anyone, but I realized I didn't like these people, and I just didn't want to be like them. And I'd also decided that I really wanted to write. That was always what I was intended to do, and I thought if I have to make that choice, I'd rather struggle and do what I have to do. I rode the garbage truck to pay the bills. And I was happy to do that because it allowed me to write. And I didn't want to ride the garbage truck for the chance of being in a movie. And that was the fundamental difference.
Your road to redemption is paved with tombstones. No quarter, kill all masters. Go to noquarterkillallmasters.com. Rated R.
Difference of why I went up there and just stayed out of the business.
That's actually a brilliant. And now let me actually run that by our resident writer, Gottlieb. How do you like? That's pretty well put, don't you think? The garbage truck riding analogy.
Oh yeah, I mean, somebody once described Hollywood as high school with money. You know.
What was Hunter S. Thompson's analogy? It's like a loathsome money pit of doom, or
where the best go screaming down the halls. I mean, it's a wonderful quote. It's too long. You have to carry it written down.
I know it is too long, but it's very appropriate.
I'm thinking of carrying it as a card. but no, I empathize completely. There are two kinds of writer. There's compulsive writers who have to write. And then there's writers like me. I'm a deadline writer. If I didn't get paid, I wouldn't write.
Caveman 2, where is it, buddy? That kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, I'd have to work with those producers again. And as Gunnar knows, it's sometimes a limitation. But did you act in the picture also? Or did you?
No, I just wrote it. Yeah. I'm sorry. What am I saying? I wish I'd written it. No, I played Leatherface in the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, see, Carl, this is what happens when you're late. You don't get properly introduced, because we were trying to give Gunnar the title he actually deserves, not the one he's known by on the street. Because I don't think a lot of people really understand what a high octane writer you actually are. It's kind of you're smiling, but.
Well, thanks.
Let me just tell everyone now. Let me tell the million-plus listeners. Fantastic writer. It's interesting that sometimes I think that's your passion, but everyone's like, "Hey, man, sign this Leatherface mask."
And I'll tell you, though, I'm grateful for those fans.
You don't look like a Leatherface. I mean, this is radio, so I have to describe.
No, it's all you guys.
But I do have, as they say, a face for radio, a leather face for radio. Yeah, but I mean, I'm grateful for fans who want to come up and meet me and have me sign autographs.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely, like you say.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but what you said prior to the show starting in studio here was that you had so much fun doing the movie that it was almost kind of difficult to hear people just kind of be like, like I said, elitist about it,
Well, I want to say something about that. I actually am asked, it's the most common question, was it fun making the movie? And my answer is always no, because it was a great experience, but it was never fun. It was a miserably difficult, exhausting job, but it was, in fact, one of the best experiences of my life. I was fresh out of college, out of grad school. And I'd never been in a situation where everyone I was working with was really good at what they did, and they were really trying hard to do their best. That was very new to me, because no matter, even when you're in grad school, half your friends are slackers.
Can I ask you? I'm just curious. What was your reaction? Hooper shows up, or you meet him and goes, "I got this idea for a movie. I'm thinking, and you're probably thinking like road trip movie, Sugarland Express, or what? Why don't you read this? Tell me what you think. I'd like you to be in it." Or how did that go down, and what was your reaction to all that?
Well, actually, it sort of went the other way, because what happened was that I met this guy who said to me, it's too bad. There are these guys in town who are making a horror movie, and you'd be perfect to play the killer. But it's been cast. So I had a pretty good idea. And then I ran into him a week later, and he said, the guy they cast is holed up drunk in a motel and won't come out, and they're now looking again. So I had a pretty good idea that I was playing the heavy. And I never had that thought of, I don't know if I want to do something like this. People ask me that. Wasn't it a psychological burden, to play this? Didn't you have nightmares? But to me, it was just like, well, this would be an interesting job.
Well, yes, make believe. I mean, everybody forgets that. I mean, there's this tendency on the part of the public to identify the actor with the character. They call you by the character name, and they're disappointed when you're not Spock or
So you're not a method actor. You didn't stay with the mask on and eat human flesh to really kind of.
Well, you really ought to read the book, because there's this whole